How many FBI agents or confidential informants actively participated in the events of January 6th?
Sir, I'm sure you can appreciate that I can't go into the specifics of sources and methods.
Did any FBI agents or confidential informants actively participate in the events of January 6th? Yes or no?
Sir, I can't answer that.
Did any FBI agents or confidential informants commit crimes of violence on January 6th?
I can't answer that, sir.
Did any FBI agents or FBI informants actively encourage and incite crimes of violence on January 6th?
Sir, I can't answer that.
Director Wray, does the FBI have confidential human sources? Did the FBI have confidential human sources embedded within the January 6th protesters on January 6th of 2021?
Well, Congressman, as I'm sure you can appreciate, I have to be very careful about what I can say about when
Even now, because that's what you told us 2 years
finish?
ago.
May I finish? About when we do and do not, and where we have and have not used confidential human sources. But to the extent that there's a suggestion, for example, that the FBI's confidential human sources or FBI employees in some way instigated or orchestrated January 6th, that's categorically false.
Did you have confidential human sources dressed as Trump supporters inside the Capitol on January the 6th prior to the doors being open?
Again, I had to be very careful.
It should be a no. Can you not tell the American people, no, we did not have confidential human sources dressed as Trump supporters positioned inside the Capitol on January 6th?
Gentleman's time has expired.
You should not read anything into my decision not to share information
Director Wray,
about confidential human
gentleman's
sources.
time has expired.
Former Capitol Police Chief Stephen Sun reportedly has asserted that the protest crowd was filled with federal agents. Are you aware of his assertion?
I am not.
Would you agree with him that it was filled with federal agents on January 6th?
I would really have to see more closely exactly what he said and get the full context to be able to evaluate it.
How many agents were actually, agents or human resources were present in the Capitol complex and vicinity on January 6th?
Well, again, it's going to get confusing because it depends on when we deployed and responded to the breach that occurred. Obviously,
how many were under
federal agents?
Sure. Yeah, you're talking,
funding.
and you and I both know what we're talking different things here. And please don't distract here because we're focusing on those who were there in an undercover capacity on January 6th. How many were there?
Again, I'm not sure that I can give you that number as I sit here. I'm not sure there were undercover agents on scene.
I find that kind of a remarkable statement, Director. At this point, you don't know whether there were undercover federal agents, FBI agents in the crowd or in the Capitol on January 6th.
I say that because I want to be very careful. There have been a number of court filings related to some of these topics, and I want to make sure that I stick within what's in.
I understand that, but I thought I heard you say you didn't know whether there were FBI agents or informants or human sources in the Capitol or in the vicinity on January 6th. Did I misunderstand you? I thought that's what you said.
Well, I referred very specifically to undercover agents.
Yeah. And so are you acknowledging then there were undercover agents?
As I sit here right now, I do not believe there were undercover agents on scene.
Any
assets? FBI agents.
Did you have any assets present that day in the crowd?
When it comes to what you're calling assets or what we would call confidential human sources, sure. That's a place where, again, I want to be careful, much as I said in response to an earlier question. There are court filings that I think speak to this that I'm happy to make sure we get to you, assuming they're not under seal. And that can better answer the question than I can as I sit here right now.
How many individuals were either FBI employees or people that the FBI had made contact with were in the January 6th entry of the Capitol and surrounding area?
So I really need to be careful here talking about where we have or have not used confidential human sources.
Was there
related to
one or
January
more,
6th
was there
anything.
one or more individuals that would fit that description on January 6th that were in or around the Capitol?
I believe there is a filing in one of the January 6 cases that can provide a little more information about this, and I'm happy to see if we can follow back up with you. and
I just
provide
want
that.
an
Yeah.
answer, was there one or more? I mean, you would know if there was at least one individual who worked for the FBI who entered the Capitol on that day.
I can't, again, I just can't speak to that here, but I'm happy to get the court filing that.
Look, it's been
that I think
2
deals with this
years,
issue.
and you're now come before us. The gentleman asks these questions, makes all kinds of insinuations, and you nod your head yes, and then I ask you simply, was there one or more? And you won't answer that. So I'm going to make the assumption that there was more than one, more than 5, more than 10, and that you're ducking the question because you don't want to answer for the fact that you had at least one.
I mean, again, we know from the testimony of the FBI director that there were intelligence, whatever you want to call them, operatives, people who were in contact with the FBI were in the crowd that day, not identified as such. Would that information have reached you? Would you know about that?
So it's interesting you asked that, because within a few days of January 6th, I had a media reach out to me and go, "Hey, you aware FBI had undercovers in the crowd?" I was like, "Oh no, they would have told me." I had Steve D'Antano, the head of Washington field office, on a call the day before. Didn't say anything to me about it. And now to see that they allegedly, according to the GAO report, had 18 operatives in the crowd, that's a lot of operatives. So when you look at the intelligence, intelligence was handled differently than any of those big events that we talk about, especially for a big event that we see now, the threat stream that was associated with it. Whether it was IMF, World Bank, you remember the 2000
Very, very
IMF,
well.
pretty
I was there for that. Yeah.
2000, the Bush inaugurations, the violence with that. We would have had an executive briefing with the FBI, would have been called into a SCIF, all the local chiefs saying, "Hey, this is the type of stuff we're seeing." There would have been what's called a JIB, a Joint Intelligence Bulletin, pushed out. None of that was done this time. No conference call. I mean, it would have been usual for FBI to host a regional conference call.
But you think 18 is a lot for that kind of event?
I think so. I mean, I would think so. And the fact that we weren't aware, and I think DHS is now saying they had a number of HSI, Homeland Security Investigations people in there as well. So it sounds like a number of the intelligence agencies had resources in the crowd.
So it was in the parlance of the internet, it was crawling with feds.
I would say there's a fair amount of law enforcement in the crowd. That's what it now appears when you add the 18, and I think DHSI said they had 20, possibly 20 out there, if not more. That starts turning into a lot of people.
Have you ever seen anything like that before?
No, I have not.
I got you right where I want you, little nigga. Go ahead, say cheese. School pick, cheese.